Hello, Droogs and Drugettes. This is the Surly Grognards for July 16th, 2012. This is Peter Bowman. I'm joined here by my good friend and co-host, Eric Carlson. How you doing tonight, Eric?
I'm doing all right. Ready for a little bit of the ultra violence? Make the red groovy flow.
So tonight we'll be talking about how the two of us got into role-playing, just gaming in general as the hobby, but role-playing games in particular, and why we've stuck with it for as long as we have. Once we talked about that for a while, we'll then go on to spend some time talking about tips and ideas for helping people who are new to the hobby. Additionally, if we have time after we've done all of that, we'll be taking questions at the end of the show. You can either email them to us at our email address, surlygrognards@yahoo.com, or you can ask them live here in the chat here. So let's get started. Why don't we start with you, Eric? How did you get into gaming?
That's. I was actually thinking all week about how I actually started. I think how it actually happened was I remember the school counselor when I was in middle school saw me a lot because I was a friendless outcast, and one thing small town Massachusetts does well is make sure that the friendless outcast feels even more like a friendless outcast. And she decided that I should check out some old Dragon magazines her son who had gone up to college had. And holy crap, that was cool. But I had no context for it. I had no idea what gaming was, so to speak. But it had neat little figures. So I had tracked down where to get those, and then suddenly I realized there were games attached to these things. Holy shit. And it went on from there. I actually played a lot when I was in the Boy Scouts, which is where I first started playing real, actual D&D games.
Ah, I did not know you were a Boy Scout, Eric.
I am, in fact, an Eagle Scout.
Wow, things I didn't
Yes.
know.
It doesn't come up terribly often in conversation.
No, it really doesn't, and I really can't. I have trouble picturing you as one in some ways, but hey. Actually, now I
Gotta
think
say,
about it, I can actually see it pretty easily. At any rate, so yeah, you started. So you played, got into D&D while you played proper D&D while you were in the Boy Scouts. You said.
yes, it was one of those things that I don't even remember who first suggested it, but we ended up playing a bunch on every camp out, and yeah, as time progressed, eventually I was in high school around the time a games shop, an actual friendly local game shop opened up, no shit, down the block from my house.
Nice.
So that's where I spent high school, and it probably kept me from murdering everyone.
Yeah, my story's a little bit different. I was given a copy of the D&D Red Box when I was 8. I I it was a long time ago, so I forget who it was who gave it to me, and I forget whether it was my birthday or if it was Christmas. One or the other. So back in 1981, though, for either birthday or Christmas, I got a copy of the Red Box. Um, and my dad, walked me through the basis of it because it's like, I was 8 and it's his birthday present, and so he walked through a little bit of the sample adventure Keep on the Borderlands, and I enjoyed it immensely, and I discovered that a bunch of, I mean, this is early 80s, so D&D just come out, and the scary sort of D&D has the devil in it hadn't really started off yet at that point. So it was actually really popular at my school. There were a bunch of people who were playing role-playing games. All the TSRs, like D&D, Gamma World, Boot Hill, Top
Ah, Gamma
Secret,
World.
Star Frontiers. All those games were played at school. So in D&D also. So I played a fair bit with a lot of my so-called friends. I was like Eric. I was a bit of a social outcast, but everyone was playing the role-playing game, so I was a bit less of one at that point. Though the interest in that did die off amongst most people, didn't with me. I kept playing. I still had friends of mine. I did have actual friends of mine who were into it, and we played a lot of. I played a bit of D&D at that point. I ended up DMing most of the time because I was the one who actually enjoyed it. Uh,
And it had the rules. That's also important.
well, no, there are other people who had the rules too. It's just that I was the one who was willing to actually be the DM. At first, it was sort of sure I'll be the DM. What the heck? And I I guess I got pretty good at it through practice and such. So I kept doing it. But I played a lot of D&D. I played D&D a fair bit early on. Played a bunch of the other TSR games. played a fair bit of Top Secret actually. A bunch of my friends and I were all into James Bond stuff, so James Bond was cool. So Top Secret was secret agent stuff. So hey, James Bond stuff, cool. Eventually, I did discover the James Bond 007 role-playing game and played that for a while too. Surprisingly, not bad game actually.
At some point.
So yeah, that's how I got into it. Was I was given a copy of it for my birthday or Christmas. Again, I was given a copy of it as a gift. Started playing it, and I got hooked real quick. So yeah, I mean that's how I got into it. So what is it about role-playing games, Eric, for you that's sort of kept you with it as long as you have stuck with it?
Well, for the longest time, it was like just an easy way to meet people and make friends. Like you'd go to the gaming store, and particularly in high school, you'd go to the gaming store, and people would be looking to get a game going, so join in with that, and you'd get to know these people. So it's also a great litmus test, honestly, when meeting new people. Make sure they're not jerks. They seem well-adjusted and play games. You can usually have at least that much in common with them.
Right. So,
but on the other hand, let's just say I really love stories. I read a lot, watch a lot of TV, watch a lot of movies, and I play a lot of games. And it all comes down to basically I love stories. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a similar thing there. I mean, I read a lot also, and I love stories. I mean, the reason I stuck with it, I didn't actually go down to the game store very often because I managed to, throughout my, up through high school, there was always a group of people at school whom I became friends with. That was how I became friends with them. As it turned out, we were interested in gaming, and so we hung out and we sort of got to know each other, and we played games. We played D&D. We played GURPS of various flavors, Champions, a lot of chess too, actually. But that's a different story. But that's actually I met a bunch of the guys when I got to high school. That's how I met a bunch of the guys I ended up playing role-playing games with, was through the chess club. Back when I played chess regularly, which I don't anymore. But yeah, so that's I stuck with it mostly because it was it was really my social outlet. Really, I mean that and video games. I mean,
definitely.
I mean it was for a guy I'm not inclined to be very social naturally. For someone like me, I'm not an extrovert in any way, shape, or form. As you can probably guess from dealing with me, Eric. But I am.
But the two hermits that sit here and do a podcast.
Yeah. Well, you're much more extroverted than I am, dude.
I guess.
Or well, at any rate, yeah, I'm definitely an introvert by nature. So it was a way for me to actually be in a social context with other people, and it honestly, it's a large way I actually managed to become capable of being a functional person. You be able to function socially with other people.
Absolutely, I definitely have that in common. It's a lot of where I dealt my social skills. Honestly, well, it was playing these games. And not just like Dungeons & Dragons stuff. I actually came into Dungeons & Dragons after I got into Warhammer Fantasy.
Right.
Because I'm a weirdo.
Oh, that happens.
No, it doesn't. It's always the other way around. The end. I have spoken.
Well, Eric, you are proof that it's not that is not the case.
Of course not. I'm the exception that proves the rule.
But yeah, I mean, I'm certainly the other way around. I got into I didn't get into miniatures gaming until high school.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really get into miniatures gaming until high school either, but that was because the gaming store down the street from me didn't open up. There was a place in the town next over Milford called the Gamers Guild, which did some, and but it was just a massive pain in the ass to get to because I lived in small town Massachusetts and couldn't drive because I was 12.
Right.
So. And let's face facts, no group of surly old wargamers wants to put up with some 12-year-old running around getting away asking questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll put up with you and they'll they'll be as tolerant as possible, but there is a limit.
Yep. So I definitely picked up a bunch of as I said, I didn't really didn't go to a lot of gaming stores. I mean, occasionally to buy books and stuff, but that I didn't hang out at them because I bought most of my gaming stuff at a store in the Harvard Square called the Games People Play, which didn't have an area where you played. They had a little board where you could looking for game stuff.
I mean, the place is still open, isn't it?
They are. They still.
Yeah.
They're one of the few brick and mortar stores I know that still does okay.
Yeah. Pandemonium is struggling, but it's always struggling.
Yeah, well, that's sort of the state of being for it, but
yeah, and Hobby Bunker I think is doing all right.
Yeah, they're doing okay. Yeah, local game stores for us guys, just for the people listening. It's the sad plight of the brick and mortar game stores. It's not an easy business to stay afloat in.
Yeah, I remember back when Boston supported like 5 or 6.
Yeah, there's a ton. Now
we're down to like 3 now.
We're down to 3, and Games Will Play isn't really sort of a typical one. It's more they mostly sell board games.
Yeah, they occasionally have other gaming stuff, but it's mostly board games. But
yeah,
but like the Complete Strat, I don't know if that closed or whether it just moved.
I don't know.
But it's not where it used to be. Danger Planet went down.
Yep.
And your move had been circling Drain pretty consistently for the entire time I knew about it.
So they're gone. Phoenix is gone.
Oh yeah, Phoenix. Yep.
Yeah, there are a bunch of. I mean, the big thing is the area where Eric and I live is a big college area, so that's why there were a bunch of game stores when the economy didn't suck. Because when you have a bunch of college students, funny thing, game stores do well. But yeah, I as I said, I stuck with gaming through high school. That's how I got to meet most of my friends in high school. And then I got to college, and in college, it's really easy to find gamers.
Yeah, remarkably easy. A lot of the best friends I have now I met via gaming.
Yep, same here. In fact, all of them, in my case.
The couple I met through other people that I knew through gaming.
That's technically true. Well, no, actually, I met them through gaming too. But I've got my friend Kyle and Ruben. I got to them through my friend Joey, who was a friend of mine from high school, and he went to MIT and got to know them and gamed with them. And I got to know Ruben and Kyle by playing a game during summer when I was not at school, with a bunch of the MIT crew. So it's both.
Weirdly enough, I never played with any of the MIT crew.
Huh.
Like, I knew of the MIT crew. I dated members of the MIT crew, the female members, but I never gamed with any of them.
Huh. Well, yeah, there's a huge gaming, unshockingly, there's a huge gaming culture at MIT. I mean, but yeah, oh God. But yeah, so that's why we got into gaming, and we stuck with it mostly because of the people we got to know. I mean, that's no small part of it.
Yeah.
Also, the fact that Eric and I both are we're role players because we enjoy the stories. I mean, that's
yeah.
But
and there are people out there who role play because they love the rule systems and stuff like that.
I love the rule systems too, but
our friend Leland is an excellent example.
Yep.
And yeah, I frankly couldn't care about the rule system as long as it didn't suck ass.
Yeah.
If there was a decent person running it.
Yeah, I'm sort of in between. I love story, I love character interaction, but I also love the mechanics.
I get my mechanics fixed via wargaming.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the difference between us.
Well, I mean, I used to wargame a lot. I don't as much these days, but
I don't as much these days either because I'm old and have no time.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's I got to get to. It takes me a while to get to where I'm going. I mean,
yeah.
There's nowhere to game near where I live, so.
Yeah, you're up in Arlington now, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm in Arlington Heights, so it's a bit of a trek.
Yeah.
It's like a good hour to get to Pandemonium, which is the nearest sort of open gaming space that I know of.
There isn't a different way to get to, let's say, Hobby Bunker? That would be easier?
I basically have to take the bus into into Porter Square and then take the subway.
Right. Probably be quicker if you were driving.
Oh yeah, be much. If I had I'm one of those people like Eric and I both don't have cars, so because we live in Boston, you don't need a car in Boston, really.
I don't even have a driver's license.
I do.
Do
But,
you?
oh yeah,
Huh. I didn't know that.
I've had one since I was 19. When I
Yeah,
worked at,
strangely
I
enough,
I
I
had
know a lot of people that never had their driver's license.
well, I had to know how to drive for the my as a random. This is random, total off topic bit here, but I got my driver's license because I was working at an overnight camp and I had to drive to get the campers up there.
Ah, okay.
So I got it my freshman year of college. That was my summer job.
That makes sense.
So knowing how to drive was important for that, and it's a useful skill. I just don't enjoy it. Anyway, but back to our topic of getting into gaming. That basically covers how Eric and I got into gaming and why we stuck with it for as long as we did. I think we should probably talk a bit about sort of ideas and things for people who are new to the hobby, and things that they can do, things to help people who are either ways to help teach new people, or for new people who are there, sort of tips and such for them. So honestly, so Eric, I'll ask you this: how have you ever actually had the pleasure of teaching someone new to the hobby how to play a game, how to play an RPG or a war game and such?
Let me see here. Um, Once or twice. They never stuck with it. I don't know whether it's because I suck or whether it's because it simply wasn't for them. But the trick for getting people to get into gaming is just to be understanding and accepting that they are going to make boneheaded moves sometimes.
Right. That's definitely a big thing. Is that when you're new to the hobby, you're gonna make mistakes. I mean, just accept that.
Absolutely.
I'm just saying this to anybody who's new to it. You're gonna make mistakes. You're not gonna be great. You know what? That's okay.
No better way to learn than to get your ass kicked a few times.
Yeah, and that's definitely true of war games and RPGs. Don't be afraid to just if you're not comfortable actually just doing the actual full-fledged role-playing part of it, don't worry about that. Pick times here and there to do a little bit of it at a time, and just step yourself up a little bit over time. Pick a scene here and there, like once every session or maybe every 2 sessions, where you do a little bit of role-playing, and then next time do a little bit more, and next time do a little bit more, and like everything, it takes practice.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know who make great role players if you can convince them that it's not silly?
Who?
Actors.
I've had really mixed results with that.
I can see that. I can see that.
I found that the actors I've actually gotten in, that were new to role playing, I've gotten involved with, that I've had been teaching the games, were some of them were great, and they're some of the best gamers I played with, and some of them were so monumentally condescending. Because what we're doing here is just silly little sort of goofy stuff. It's not acting.
With a capital acting.
Yes, and they were like we're better. I'm a better role player than you are because I'm an actor. And they're better. They're a better actor than I am, but they weren't as good at improv.
Yeah. Well.
It's like, okay, you realize I'm much quicker on my sort of my mental feet than you are. They were very confused, and they were really, really irritating. But yeah, it's not just picking the right
So
people.
people like that, though, I have a low threshold for condensation. I have a low threshold for douchebaggery.
Yeah.
So I tend to not play with those people after a couple sessions.
Oh well, I didn't either. Although I had to put up with some of them for a while because they were involved in the vampire LARP that was going on during college that I played in, and eventually left because about half of them were the obnoxious bastards I'm talking about. Like, oh God.
Right.
Oh God. Combining,
experience with LARPing, I actually didn't stick around with because I became very frustrated with there are a few condescending people that like that, but my biggest problem with LARPing was that they wouldn't let me shield bash people or knock them over or generally use my size and weight to to my advantage.
Yeah, well, that never comes up in Vampire, really, but
That's true. It should. How else am I supposed to play my friggin' I don't know what's a violent vampire clan?
Bruja.
Bruja. How else am I supposed to play my Bruja if I can't punch people?
Oh God. So yeah, but again, it sort of, if you're getting someone into the game and you think you got a friend who you're trying to introduce to the game, into a game, keep it simple. Sound them out, see if they think it sounds, see if it's like, see if it sounds like something that they might enjoy. I mean, if you think of something they might enjoy, just invite them to a simple, like, a one shot where they're, if it's an RPG, a one shot where they can basically give them a very simple character to play around with, and give them time, give them time and give them space. But I've actually found it's hard recruiting people who are you don't know are interested is much harder than you know you know bringing people in whom who basically said, hey, I'm interested in learning how to play, and then
Yeah. I've never had to go feeling out. It's always been, hey, I'm interested in playing. How do I do this?
yeah. So for people like that, it's much easier. Um, I've had virtually no success in recruiting people who didn't actually explicitly express interest, because
I've never tried.
I've been asked to try.
Mm.
I've been asked, it's like, hey, this is my friend whom I want to try to get into gaming. Peter, would you help me teach him how to play? Okay. And after a while, I could tell they weren't interested. And the other friend was off, getting a drink, getting a soda or something. I said, so did you actually ask to learn how to play? He's like, nah, he just thought I might be interested. I'm like, okay.
The inevitable girlfriend of one of your players.
That was the boyfriend of a girl, but yes. As an aside, I'm one of those guys who's gamed with a fair number of female gamers. It's weird. I know a fair number of them.
I've gamed with a fair number of female gamers also, but not till college.
Oh, I knew a few in high school.
Yeah, maybe it was just where I grew up, but there were no female gamers in Mendon, Massachusetts. At least not that I knew of.
Well,
there's a secret cabal that had their own game store that of female gamers that didn't let anyone else know they were gamers. So
yeah, there's only one or two in my high school, but definitely college is where I met the most of the female gamers I knew. Actually, the game I played most in college was basically the gender split was 50-50, which is actually kind of cool.
Actually, for looking at the comments here, I've noticed a couple people are sort of in the land of no friendly neighborhood game stores.
Yeah, well, that's
just suggest talk to Peter because he actually does online gaming, which outside of like your standard MMO, I've never done.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, online gaming has definitely been a big thing that's helped in that too. But basically, my biggest tip to people who are new to gaming is basically be patient. You're gonna make mistakes. Don't worry about that.
You're absolutely going to make mistakes. They're going to seem really dumb mistakes after you've been experienced a little while. That happens. Happens to everybody.
But yeah, honestly, I mean, there are game systems that I think are better suited to new players than others. In terms of RPGs, I'm a big proponent of the Feng Shui RPG. Eric had both played it.
Feng Shui is a great RPG, which I don't think is supported anymore, sadly.
Yeah, I think it's technically still available in print, but it's not really being supported anymore. Atlas Games makes it. It's a great game and is remarkably simple for new players. Fourth Ed's actually pretty good for new players. Not perfect, obviously, but it's if you're willing to talk.
Actually, for a brand new player, I'd probably suggest something more akin to Pathfinder. Or
really?
a 3.5 D&D because it's got enough complexity that it can seem a little intimidating at first, but once you've got that figured out, it's going to more complex game systems isn't nearly as hard as it would be.
Okay, I could see that, I guess, because I've I've never seen anyone. I've had never had success teaching people who are new to gaming in 3.0 3.5. It's just the level of it's not as bad as teaching new players hero system who've never played
Oh,
RPGs
Jesus
before.
Christ.
Um,
It's not as bad as teaching experienced gamers hero system.
no, experienced gamers I've taught hero system, but I don't know. I would personally lean towards fourth ed over third ed for new players, but I can see the argument that you're making
Yeah,
that it might
Fourth
be
Ed,
easier to move on to
Fourth
more
Ed's a
complex.
great game. I like Fourth Ed. I like 3.5. They're both good games as far as I'm concerned. They
Yep.
just have different issues. 3.5, don't play it past level 7. um, Fourth Ed, ignore the skill system. Make up your own.
It's usable. That's not ideal. But yeah, you could definitely start with like basic D&D also. If you can find a copy of like the really old basic Dungeons and Dragons, mechanically they'll have no trouble learning it. It's actually very simple.
Yes. The does have the problem that it has elves, and elves are not welcome in
Oh,
any games.
be quiet, Eric.
Fuck you, elves.
Oh God.
You know what's actually really funny? I actually rather liked elves in high school gaming. It wasn't until later on where I started encountering elves fucking everywhere. Like from like senior year in high school up through the advent of World of Warcraft, where elves are just everywhere, and they always seem to attract the biggest goobers.
Uh-huh.
I should know I was in high school and therefore a goober and played an elf.
Yeah, it's interesting. I up until basically where the all the elf hate started. I don't remember exactly when that was, but because it's really been a big sort of gaming meme of late. Again, sort of somewhat off topic, but uh, I was a big dwarf player, and I basically almost never played elves or anything like that. I played humans, hobbits, and halflings, and dwarves in Dungeons and Dragons. Up until basically, God, I don't remember college or so, I guess. Maybe a little bit later. And when I started playing a few elves here and there, and that's roughly when people started going about how much they hated. Actually, I didn't notice people hating elves like really really hating elves widely until the Lord of the Rings movies came out.
Oh no, I'm an OG elf hater. I hated it before then.
I'm just saying that's when I really noticed it.
You know what really did it in for me for elves
What?
was the Humanoid's Handbook came out for Second Ed Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
And it had half orcs and half ogres in there. And I instantly gravitated straight to these as they're so much more interesting conceptually. And then I realized just how many advantages an elf player character had over everyone else. And yeah, the seeds of hatred were sown.
Fair enough.
And it translates across the spectrum of games and fantasy. Elves have all the advantages, and what do they do with them? They nonce about in the woods and they let shit go to hell. And who has to fix it? The humans, the dwarves, and the orcs. That's fucking elves, man.
The orcs rarely fix anything, Eric. I hate to say this.
No, they make everything better.
If by better you mean worse, then sure.
The downtrodden, the disenfranchised, rising up to tear down everything that ever had a boot on their neck. That's orcs.
Yeah.
Or if we're talking Games Workshop, they're just 20% cooler than everything else.
Yeah. As an aside, Eric's a big orc fan, as you probably have guessed. But at any rate, back to the topic of teaching new players our role-playing games and such. You got anything else? Any other ideas, Eric?
The choice of game that you introduce a new gamer to is really important.
Mm-hmm.
You choose something too complex or Byzantine, they'll never want to touch it again because they'll just make them feel dumb. Don't ever bring out Rollmaster to a new gamer or Hero System. I mean, I've got no love for Rollmaster, but Hero System's really good, but it's absolutely an experienced gamer's system. The rule system, the character creation are Byzantine and arcane and dense like stellar matter.
I wouldn't go quite that far. I would say be careful about bringing out some of the more complex systems to new players. There are people who are new to role-playing, new to gaming, for whom systems that are that complex are actually not a bad choice. But you have to be sure about that. We're talking about the right person. I mean, I've got friends of mine who would have been completely fine just getting in off the ground floor on Hero System. Because that's the way they think. They're mathematicians, they're computer programmers, and that level of complexity doesn't faze them. I mean, I had friends of mine in college who that I got into role playing games who I taught them with Hero System because they were admittedly two of them were math majors. So
yeah, I was thinking a math major or a physics major would probably love Hero
yeah,
System.
because the mathematics, it's like this is it's basic algebra at worst, and that only shows up during character creation. But I mean, even then, if you have the Hero System's Godsend is the character builder that the company made.
Yeah, you can.
Which makes things much easier. But at any rate, Eric's right, completely right. Picking the right system for the right person is crucial. I mean, if you're teaching if someone's interested in getting into gaming and they're a sci-fi fan and really aren't into fantasy, don't teach them Dungeons and Dragons.
No, don't teach them.
I mean, if they don't like fantasy,
Cyberpunk 2020 actually, that's actually a fairly accessible system.
I wouldn't do for a generic sci-fi fan. I probably wouldn't go with that, but
that's true. It's yeah. I was thinking the system's fairly.
Yeah, I mean,
elegant after it in a way in its simplicity, but.
But yeah, no, there are plenty of systems that you can find a good basic sci-fi system and use that. Yeah, and Riot Planeswalker in the chat here is completely right. Once they're in, picking the right class or build for them, you have to talk to them and find out what it is they want to do.
Right. Do they want to be do they want to do support? Do they want to be the guy on the front line smashing things?
They want to talk a lot. I mean, that reminds me. The other crucial thing, and this is for choosing systems, is finding out, this takes time. But you have to talk to them and sort of get a feel for whether they are, what end of the sort of spectrum they're on in terms of whether they are into mechanics or they're into, or their narrative. I mean, there's the classic breakdown of games that, which we've talked about before, of narrative simulationist or gamist. And it's a little bit too rigid for what I'm talking about here because most people tend to fall somewhere within the spectrum. Like there are people who are purely into narrative and they don't give a damn about mechanics of the system as long as they can do their role-playing thing, and they honestly, the less rules the better for them. And there are people who are all the way down the other end who are complete gamists, and so all they care about is the mechanics of the game, and the story is not really important to them. And then the simulationists, as long as the game simulates exactly what the genre that they're doing, that's all they're really happy about. The actual story is less important, and the actual mechanics are less important, as long as the mechanics simulate what they want. Now, most people don't fall in any of those extremes.
Most people fall somewhere in the middle of that Venn diagram.
Right, exactly.
Honestly.
I mean, there's people tend to favor one sort of direction or another, and finding out where the potential new player lies in there is a big help, because then you can actually find the right system to teach them with. Now, if you can't find that out quickly or you don't have a lot of options, that's fine. Pick something that's fairly simple and straightforward and go with that. And explain to them that, this might not be completely your cup of tea. There are a ton of other systems out there, but this is what I've got available to teach you with. And once you've learned this, we can together find a game that might be more your cup of tea that'll also work for me. Because that's the other key, is you got to enjoy what you're teaching. Because
they'll, even if they don't pick up on it on a conscious level, anyone that's being taught something is going to figure out pretty quickly if their teacher doesn't enjoy the subject matter.
Right. And you got to enjoy what you're teaching, otherwise you're not going to get anywhere with it. So that's the other thing, is that you got to figure out.
Which is why no one does well in high school, because the teachers are largely burnt out. Says a guy whose only experience in high school is with an aging, burnt out faculty in the middle of well, the Boondocks. So.
Yeah, well, I went to college prep school, so
Mm.
I didn't do well because I was lazy.
That too. I mean, I'll admit it. I'm a lazy bastard.
But yeah, yeah, just you got to pick the right. Picking the right game isn't crucial, but oh my god, it helps. And similarly, this is also true if you're trying to teach someone a different type of game, not just role-playing games, like tabletop games. Picking a
Mm.
really complicated game like, oh, I don't know, Advanced Squad Leader or Starfleet Battles to teach someone who's never played a war game before wargaming, don't do that.
Yeah. I.
They will look at the rulebook and the 8-point font, single-spaced, and run away. That's cross-indexed and has headings like G32.4.8. They'll run away screaming, and I don't blame them.
For teaching a new wargamer, I'd honestly probably suggest one of the Games Workshop specialty games like Necromunda or Mordheim or something.
Or Blood Bowl or
They're
something
scaled.
like that.
Blood Bowl would be an excellent choice actually, because they're scaled down versions of the big two, 40k and fantasy.
Yep, those are good choices. You could also
And,
go with some of the. There's a bunch of newer squad level games that have been coming out recently that would work well too.
which unfortunately I have not had a chance to try out.
Me
like,
neither. I've heard good things about Confrontation,
Mm.
but it's
Confrontation's been out for a while. I've never played it. It always struck me as a little Byzantine. That's maybe because the rules were in French.
yeah. I don't know. Our mutual friend Brian plays it a fair bit. Played it for a bit, but there are a bunch of small games that are like that.
War
Malifaux.
Machine's actually an excellent game that scales down.
Yeah,
well.
War Machine is a great game. If they like big robots, War Machine is great. If they don't like
And
War,
it's pen and game hordes if they prefer monsters.
right? I agree. I've heard good things about Malifaux. The Moat Man in the chat suggested that one. HeroClix, that'd be a fine place to start. I'm not personally a big fan of WizKids click games, but for teaching people wargaming, they're actually pretty good. Actually, now that I think about it.
You know what? WizKid's click games I'd like a lot more for the collectible aspect.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, basically, if you could get the figs you wanted without without the random boosters, they'd actually be great teaching.
The same with Monster Apocalypse. I actually love the hell out of Monster Apocalypse if I could just buy one I wanted.
Yep. But yeah, HeroClix, if you've got a good collection of stuff and your friends into comic books, that's a great game to teach them with. In all honesty, honestly, it's probably the best of the bunch because it removes one of my problems with the click games is the fact that you have to pick the model up to change to adjust your stats, and then you put them back down on the map, and you're not sure exactly where it was. Whereas the HeroClix, you're playing on a square grid, so you know where it was.
The one time I played HeroClix, and again the collectible issue, was someone actually had all of the BPRD, Hellboy, and Lobster Johnson even, and Abe Sapien, and I got to beat them, and I got to fight the Avengers. It was pretty awesome. I lost, but it was pretty awesome.
Nice. I own a fair number of HeroClix figs, but I bought them specifically so I had a big mix of superheroes and supervillains for my Champions games.
Mm.
But yeah, Blood Bowl, Space Hulk's another good one. Yeah, as Eric said, all the GW specialty games are good teaching. Are pretty good teaching.
With the exception of Epic and War Master, those are a little tough to get into.
Yeah, those aren't easy to get into.
And if you do Battlefleet Gothic, stay away from the Orcs and the Eldar. The Orcs are really underpowered, and the Eldar are busted as all hell.
Yeah. But yeah, those are good games to start with there. And if you're when you're teaching people a war game, be patient with them. They're gonna make mistakes. That's okay. And if you're teaching them and they're making mistakes, point the mistakes out in a friendly, instructive manner, not in a like, haha, you suck, dude. But okay, this is what you did. That is going to be a problem because I'm about to do this in response, and then show them why it's a mistake. And if the dice don't betray you, they'll learn.
Right, and when teaching someone a war game, having a debrief at the end, like, these are the mistakes you made. These are the mistakes I made that you failed to take advantage of, kind of deal.
Yeah, exactly. That's actually what.
In fact, even amongst experienced gamers, I really like those.
So that's it. Honestly, I think it's when you're teaching anyone a new game, that's a new war game. That's critical. I mean, we did that when I was teaching you Babylon 5 Wars.
Oh, right, yeah. which you should play more of. I liked that.
It's a good game. We should play more of that. But yeah, basically, what I mean, I was teaching Eric Babylon 5 Wars. The first game we played, Eric made a few mistakes. I made a few mistakes. I won because the Dice Gods didn't hate me. They basically bailed me out.
They totally bailed you out.
Oh, they did.
Oh,
Now,
you had like some Centauri cruiser limping along, and I still had 2 Narn cruisers, and I just exploded.
no, that was the second one, and you won that one. No,
Did I win that one?
No, yeah, you won the second one. The first one was basically I realized that I was in a bad. You did enough damage to me. I was in a bad position, so I started taking pot shots in piercing mode and blew out your ability to turn.
That I remember now. Yeah.
So I basically just kept hammering you with piercing shots and blew you away from the inside. Blew away the core of your ship. But yeah, but that was the thing. Is that after the game I pointed out the mistakes that you made that let me do that.
Right.
Because that was the thing, is that if you hadn't made those mistakes, I wouldn't have been able to take advantage of them in the way I did. But yeah, and Sonic Gav in the chat here is completely right. Lesson 1 of gaming, all gaming, the Dice Gods hate you. Deal with it.
I have some friends that never learned that lesson, but it's very true.
We have a mutual friend who really hasn't learned that lesson. Well, he's learned the Dice Gods hate him, but he hasn't learned how to deal with it. I think we both know at least one person who's like that, Eric.
Yeah, absolutely.
At any rate, I think that basically covers most of what we wanted, most of the tips and tricks that we got. At least the ones off the top of my head. How about you, Eric?
Getting people into gaming,
and teaching them, and such.
Teaching them, I'm a bad teacher.
Fair enough.
I'm a bad teacher. I usually leave that to other people and chip in with advice here and there.
Yeah.
Because I have a tendency to get frustrated, both with myself for not explaining things properly, and with my student for not knowing the obvious thing that so obvious I don't even think about anymore, but took me 3 years to realize that I was doing it, type of deal.
And not everyone's not. That's the other thing that you'll find out is not everyone is good at teaching. If you find out you're not good at teaching, basically just acknowledge that. You can get better at it too over time, but just be patient. Be enthusiastic. Don't be falsely enthusiastic. But if you're teaching something you enjoy, make sure you let them know that this is something you enjoy. You like this game.
It's true. Enthusiasm is a plague. It catches and spreads like wildfire.
So yeah, I think honestly, just be friendly, be helpful, be enthusiastic, be patient. And honestly, that goes both ways. If you're learning a game, be patient because you're gonna make mistakes, and the guys teaching you may not be a great teacher, but be patient. Be enthusiastic because having an enthusiastic student always helps someone teaching them. And realize that you're learning a game from someone who's probably one of your friends. I mean,
yeah, I've never tried to teach anyone who is not my friend first.
Yeah, I've done it a few times, but it helps. But they're probably going to become your friend because you're going to be gaming with them. And honestly, when you game with people enough, you
tend to become friends with them.
Yeah, and that's back to the bit where
someone drops out of the game because they can't stand the other guy.
Yeah, right. I mean, that really leads back to what we were talking about earlier. Why we stuck with the hobby so long. It's the people. We made friends doing it, and it's one of the ways we socialize with our friends. I mean, we do other things too, but. So I think that covers that. So I think we can open things up to the chat for questions if they got anything they want to ask us. So chat peoples, denizens of Internet Land, our friends.
Come on, we got 15 minutes to fill.
We got 15 minutes, so give us some questions, guys.
Or you can hear me rant about elves again. I can easily do that for 15 minutes.
Yeah, please, guys, questions, please. Either he'll start talking about dinosaurs and giant robots.
Which are awesome.
See what I mean?
Come on, like you wouldn't want a dinosaur to ride to work and devour people in your way. Unless it was some herbivore. I mean, they're terrible. Oh, we want to talk about elves, do we? Okay,
no, Eric, no, bad Eric, bad Eric. And Darkbolt, I like elves also. I've come to like elves more. I think part of the reason I've come to like elves more recently is I'm a bit of a contrarian by nature. So, everybody who hates, everyone's like,
With me.
elves suck, elves suck. Well, fuck you, elves are awesome.
No, they're not.
Yes, they are.
You see, most of the people I know like elves. Um, you, Chris, Roach, they like elves. I hate the bastards.
I'm okay. That's the thing. I'm actually okay with people don't like elves. I get irritated with people who basically insist that other people don't like elves. If you know what I mean.
He says, looking at me.
You don't try to convince me not to stop liking elves, Eric.
No, it's true, I don't. I accept that you will probably like elves. Oh, yes. Drow definitely are included in my hatred of elves. Games Workshop Dark Elves get a little step up, but they're still not good.
We got a question here, I think. Woohoo. If you're put in a position with house ruled weapons, do you have person rules on how to keep them balanced?
Hmm.
Uh,
Well, it depends on what we're talking about. Are we talking about wargaming, or are we talking about tabletop
RPGs. Yeah,
RPGs?
that's a good question. We'll come back to that in a second. But Treglin actually asks, what's the deal with Eladrin and elves, and what you have no idea what the lore there is? That's a very recent thing in Dungeons and Dragons. What they did is they decided to.
What they did is they decided that orcs weren't cool enough, so they weren't allowed to be in the main book. So they instead made elves that were even elfier elves to annoy me personally.
They put the half orcs in the second book, Eric. And they're fucking awesome, and you know it.
They are. They're pretty awesome.
What they decided to do is they decided that the difference between the very very sort of classical Fey elves that you're talking about, like the Seelie and Unseelie courts, those are sort of enough different that they sort of merit their own race from your classic wood elves, and that's why they did that. And the Eladrin really are so the classic Fey, tales of the fairy tale Fey.
They're very much the she from Celtic mythology.
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone knows that.
And the elves, the regular elves are classic Tolkien wood elves. So that's why they decided that those two concepts were different enough that they merited separate races. And I agree with them, actually. I was skeptical at first, but then I thought about it and said, you know what? They're right. And as much as I'm a fan of elves, I'm a big fan of the Eladrin.
I'll give the Eladrin some props, and they're closer to being the classical Celtic mythology she, the kind of people that they don't lie but don't trust a word they say type of deal.
Yep.
And I kind of dig that simply because I'm a big mythology buff.
And Eric understands why I like the Eladrin. He doesn't understand why I like elves, but Eladrin he gets.
Eladrin get a grudging, okay, you guys can hang out with me, I guess, from me.
But back to Treglin's question about the
weapon balance.
Atachi, about the weapon balance, yeah. Tabletop RPGs. In a tabletop RPG, if you're dealing with custom weapons, that's really the game master's purview. If the player's interested, saying, "Hey, I want to use this special weapon that doesn't exist," my general rule of thumb in that case is, let me see if I can find a weapon that already has rules for it, and we'll sort of smoosh. There you go. We'll use the stats from this weapon and just say that's what your weapon is.
This is a bit more difficult with sort of the cyberpunk type of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Simply because there are actual demonstrable differences between, say, firearms, for example.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
In quality. So at that point, it becomes very much a chore, really, where you have to.
Right. So basically, how do I?
player that wants to use, say, instead of an AK-47, and figuring out what would be appropriate differences between the two, and have them still work properly still be balanced. This will sometimes mean actual research.
Yeah. So honestly, it's mostly just getting a feel for what will balance for your game as the game master. If you're talking about from the player's point of view, where GM's introducing a homebrew weapon that you think is unbalanced, talk to them about it. say this is
Yeah,
why I think
honestly.
it's unbalanced. Maybe you want to tone it down. But again, don't do it in a confrontational way. Remember, you're playing with your friends here, so be polite, be reasonable. Don't be a dick. To quote Will Wheaton, don't be a dick.
No, my hugging arm. I can't hear Will Wheaton without thinking of the story arc and Something Positive, which is a webcomic that I'm not in any way, shape, or form involved in. I just read a lot. Where
Same.
he shows up and gets his arm cut off by cat
By
girls.
horde of cat girls, yep. Okay, Ryos Planewalker says he's been invited to his first 4th edition D&D campaign. He's asked to be the party's defender. Since my first time being a meat shield in 4th ed, do you have any tips on how to be an effective tank? Actually, yes, I do, Ryo, because I play a large part of what I've done is play fighters in 4th ed. I play defenders and leaders primarily. So I'm actually pretty good at them.
The one fourth ed game I was in, I played a barbarian because barbarians are awesome, but I always kind of had envy of the fighter in the group who had envy of my barbarian. It was a very weird kind of dichotomy.
Yeah, well, yeah, you smashed much harder than he did, and you were like, but you have all these awesome tricks, and
It's true.
So yeah, the my tips on how to be an effective tank in 4th ed. Tip 1: you want to have a couple of ways to mark more than one enemy. Don't go overboard on that, especially early on, because early on you won't be able to handle multiple rounds of everybody trying to kill you. You want to have like 1 or 2 tricks to basically say, yeah, I've got 2 people's attention this time. But yeah, basically, the tips are my tips are basically, first off, be sure you understand how your defender mechanic works. If your fighter, understand the rules for immediate interrupts, because that's where, and opportunity attacks, because those are critical for you. If you're a paladin, understand how the divine sanctions and the differences between your divine sanction and your divine challenge are. If you're a warden, you have to understand how the differences between immediate interrupt and immediate reaction, because they are different. If you're a sword mage, you're gonna be you're completely different. I love sword mages, but they are wacky. Uh,
I never played a fighter, but I remember looking at them a lot in 4th ed and really, really wanted to try out a dwarf shield and hammer fighter.
They're good. But yeah, so that's step 1. Step 2, don't obsess with having the highest armor class in the party. Because if you do, if your armor class is much, much higher than everybody else's, it actually weirdly makes you less effective as a defender. The thing is that basically the reason is that if you mark someone, they have a -2 to attack anyone but you, right? If your armor class is like 6 higher than everybody else's, they're better off at basically ignoring your mark for the most part, because yeah, they're -2 to hit your buddy over there, but they still have a +4 effectively to hit them with regards to you. So keep in mind what your defenses are vis-a-vis the rest of the party. The other things to keep in mind, keep an eye on where you are position-wise. As a defender, knowing where people are relative to you is important. Knowing how knowing how various status effects work is very important. Build yourself to be somewhat self-reliant, just that the leader doesn't have to spend every second keeping you upright. But
I still do that with my barbarian.
But yeah, so basically, don't go as a defender. Don't be the brave little hovercraft and zoom off into the middle of nowhere and get yourself surrounded and killed. You're the best suited to do that, but don't go off on your own without some backup, because it's likely to get you killed. But yeah, basically the tips are, know how your character works. Don't bite off more than you can chew. Dartful's got it spot on there. Leroy Jenkins completely. Work with your teammates, because they're your teammates in this.
Absolutely. Remember, it's actually a team game. You've got your teammates there for a reason.
Your job isn't to do the most damage, although doing a lot of damage helps as a defender, because it means they can't ignore you. The bad guys can't ignore you. But the fact that the ranger and the barbarian outdamage you, it's a good thing. That means the bad guys go away very quickly, and the best status effect on a bad guy is dead.
This is true. By the same token, you can't DPS if you're dead. So
yeah, exactly. So any other questions, people? We got another 5-10 minutes here.
Come on, humans.
Yeah, Gav,
We're
terrified.
terrified and wetting their pants.
Thanks, Gav. That's a good one too. Oh, God.
Only if they have information you need.
Yeah. Any tips for a new artificer? Honestly, tips for a new artificer.
What's an artificer?
That's one of the leader classes they introduced in. It's the leader class they introduced in Eberron. It's an arcane leader. They do crazy things with building stuff and such. They're really neat.
Mechanic from Iron Kingdoms. Gotcha.
Yeah. Honestly, my best tip for that is watch the Shadowlands game, the D&D Shadowlands game I run. Watch how Nick plays his. He's very good at it. Yeah. I mean, that's a good one. Trugglin asks, can Shadowland get a Beholder encounter soon? Maybe. They're about the level where I can consider throwing a Beholder at them.
You're kind of breaking up there, buddy.
Am I breaking up a little bit? I'm sorry. Well,
on with the hammer.
Really?
Ah, much better. Okay.
Okay, we're all good now. All right. Darkvolt, we don't really have time for me to go into full detail on the
now you're going all crazy again.
What? No, that might be on your end, Eric. Hang on a second. Can people in the chat hear me fine?
Now. Huh.
Well, I guess we'll wrap up now. Anyways, it's about 8 o'clock now. So thank you for listening, everybody. So that's all the time we have for today. If you have questions, if you have comments on the show, or that ask you for questions answered during the Q&A portion of the show, please feel free to either comment on the blog post or send an email to our email address, surlygrognards@yahoo.com, and we'll try to get your questions in a future show. You can find me on Twitter at MechaGM or on Facebook or Google as Peter Bowman. You can find Eric's work on the webcomic Boston Arcanum, which is located at bostonarcanum.com. I'm Peter Bowman, and for my co-host Eric Carlson, I wish you all a good night and hope you all enjoyed the show. Say good night, Eric.
Good night, humans. And you filthy, filthy elves.
Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.